what can I do to maintain my newly formed behaviors during this stressful time and especially during holidays? That's the question I will be answering on today's episode of Ask Nutritionist Deepa. So everybody, welcome to today's episode. And to answer and to help us answer that question, I have a very special guest, Mr. Howard Jacobson, who is, gosh, where should I start? A podcast host of Plant Yourself, a writer, educator, and most importantly, a coach. So we have an expert in the house today to help us answer and come up with some hands-on solutions for the question that one of my patient is going through. So Howard, welcome to Ask Nutritionist Deepa.
Thank you, Nutritionist Deepa. I'm thrilled to be here.
Okay, cool. So, Howard, before we jump into answering the question for our patient or our audience, can you tell us your life story in a few minutes as to what you do, why you do what you do, and how you chose this path of helping others?
Yeah, so I was an educator for a long time. I taught school, I taught in college, I taught kindergarten. And at that time, I was very interested in health, in helping kids. You know, I was tired of gym class was a waste of time. Instead, it wasn't physical education. Sex education was all about, you know, don't do it and don't get disease. So I felt like there was a big missing piece in teaching people how to be healthy. So I got a PhD in health studies, health education, public health. And then I couldn't find a job. So I asked a friend to help me out in the business world, and I started doing organizational coaching and consulting, and discovered there was tools that the business world was using to help people change and to help organizations change, and most importantly, to maintain the change that I had not learned in 7 years of graduate studies in health. So I began applying them in business, in marketing, and then I had a chance in 2011 to work on the book Whole with T. Colin Campbell, who wrote the China study. And from 2011 to 2015, I was mostly working on books about the facts. And after a while, it occurred to me, like, people who want to write books about the facts, God bless you. I'm tired of it. I think we know enough.
Correct.
And the facts there were still a lot of people who believed what they'd read in Whole and the China study and Proteinaholic and the Low Carb Fraud and other books by Michael Greger, by Caldwell Esselstyn, Neil Barnard, Joel Furman, John McDougall. I believe it. I want to do it. And they can't. Or they tried for a while and they fail, or they're constantly at war with themselves. So I knew that I had a background that could help people with that. So since 2016, I've been focused entirely on developing processes and programs and offering services to help people live their daily lives in accordance with their values, goals, and priorities.
Oh, perfect. Because I'm so with you when it comes to knowledge now. I think we are overwhelmed with knowledge. I don't think there is a single person in this country who doesn't agree that we need to eat healthy.
Right.
There's the convincing part is done. Don't you think that we also have enough choices now to eat healthy? So kind of, it's not like 15 years ago, more than that, 20 years ago, when I would go out to eat and ask for a sandwich without meat, some people would look at you as if, why are you even at the restaurant, right? So we have also solved part of, eating, finding products which are whole food plant-based. So it's not that but again, it goes back to what you just said. It's how do we maintain, how do we stay on the wagon? So especially during stressful times or events or social events or these upcoming holidays, so That's exactly what this particular patient is suffering from. So when you have somebody like that, where should she go? What should she, how should she deal with these issues?
Right. So if it would be easier if I could coach her, right,
Correct.
and get back and forth. So the first thing I would ask her to do is to pay attention to the assumptions that
Hmm.
are embedded in her language,
Hmm.
right? So she says, how can I maintain it with all the stresses and pressures?
Hmm.
And in there is an assumption that stresses and pressures are a reason to break your dietary plan. Right? So she's not saying, I'm afraid that I'm going to rob a bank because of all the stresses and pressures. I'm afraid that I'm going to get in my car and try to mow down little old ladies.
Yes.
Right? So like stress and pressure doesn't have a universal effect on our behavior.
Correct.
Right? So there are certain things that we have given our power over in certain domains. And the first thing I would invite her to do is to notice that that's true. And to begin to use empowering language. So if I'll give you an example. So she might say, whenever I'm stressed, I end up eating Ben and Jerry's on the couch.
Yes.
Right? So you hear the words end up. There's no agency there.
Correct.
Right? So is it true that you end up, how did this happen? I was asleep and all of a sudden there was a bowl and a spoon. Right? So yeah. I invite them. I don't tell people what to do. I don't berate them, but through questioning, I'd say, is there another way to say that that might give you more control? More, because without responsibility, if people aren't taking responsibility, they have no control. Right? The responsibility, the ability to respond. So I'd often get them to say, yeah, when I get stressed, I choose to eat ice cream. And all of a sudden, do you feel how different that is?
Yes. Yeah, it's like it's not somebody else's fault anymore. It's the choice that you are making yourself. Right? We are driving ourselves into that situation because I don't think anybody's putting gun to my head and saying, hey, you have to eat this Ben and Jerry or whatever ho-hos, otherwise you are dead. So there's definitely not that type of pressure. So really rephrasing as to why you are in that situation, what is pushing you in that situation. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah. So when I've developed rapport with someone, because I tend to be very direct, but I try to be sensitive to, because people have, all sorts of issues around weight that they've already been dealing with. So I don't want to come across as a jerk.
Correct.
But once they trust me, there's a game that I like to play where I'll say, tell me all of the reasons that you are going to have trouble eating whole food plant-based this.
Correct.
And they'll come up with them, and I'll say, okay, we're gonna go through the same list, but instead of the good reasons, we're gonna call them your favorite excuses.
Correct.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to buy that, but once people recognize what they're doing, that they're essentially conning themselves.
Yes.
Right?
Literally, that's their excuse or blaming, because they don't want to. They think it's somebody else's fault.
Right. Or even worse, they think it's their fault and there's nothing they can do to change it.
Yeah.
Deepa, I have a sweet tooth.
Yes.
Right? Deepa, at night, I can't control myself.
Yeah.
Deepa, I can't give up cheese. I love it too much.
Oh my God. I have a cheese lover that I'm dealing with right now as we speak. She feeling addicted to cheese.
Yeah. So let's tell it like it is. Instead of, oh, I can't give up cheese, I choose not to give up cheese.
Correct.
Right? I choose to keep eating cheese. God bless you.
That's right.
It's a free country. Eat cheese.
Yes, eat cheese, exactly.
Understand that you can either have what you want or you can have your habits.
Yes.
And you're a grown up, make a decision. If you say I can't then let go of the goals, your cholesterol goals, your C-reactive protein goals, your weight goals, your mood goals, your skin goals. If you want to keep eating cheese, you can have that, but you don't get to have that and all the things that you'd get by giving up cheese.
Absolutely, you are very right. Like you have your list of their favorite excuses. I call them my oh but questions. Because you have people who they come to you and they want to change and blah blah blah, and when it times to make a change or take action, they say, oh, I want to not eat cheese, but, and I say, okay, what is your oh but? Let's address your oh buts. uh, so it's the same thing. I mean, if we want, like you nailed it, that if you want to reach your goal, you have to start taking actions. And would you agree that both of us are not saying that give up cheese overnight and completely turn 180, but at least
I don't care what people do.
Exactly.
If someone comes to me and wants to keep eating cheese, I will support them. I have no opinions about what anyone does to themselves.
Yes.
So I simply ask, what do you want?
Correct.
And okay, it seems like you have a conflict here. So you can, if you have a conflict, I want X, I'm doing Y, you can either change the thing you're doing, you can change the thing you want, or you can stay where you are and be miserable.
Yes.
Your choice. But I'm not going to, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a dietitian. So I'm lucky. I don't have to tell them what to do. I don't have any opinion. I don't know I don't know what's good for me most of the time, let alone what somebody else should do.
Yeah.
Right? I've become very humble in my later years. So whatever you want to do, I will, if I have the ability and it works with my morality, I'll help you get there. What do you want?
Correct.
And I think the thing that, so we're talking about, okay, the initial attitude of taking responsibility, people can get that in a conversation with you or me, they can get excited, but in the moment, that all slips away. So we need strategies to address what happens when we're not in their face.
Correct. Exactly. So if we were to replicate her situation, because that's how many people are going to be, maybe not so much this year because there may not be a big crowd at your house for Thanksgiving, but if we were to take a typical holiday like Thanksgiving, where you are not only surrounded by food that is going to feed the entire town, all kinds of food, and people who are sometimes can be looked upon as food bullies, who are going to say, oh, this is, whatever, however they are going to phrase that, why you should try the food that you don't want to try, or your so they're going to push your pain points.
Yeah.
So
there's a few things that we have to work on here. So one is, I would tell people, like, decide what you want as specifically as you can. So like people would say, okay, I'm going to eat clean this Thanksgiving. I don't know what that means. And in the moment, you don't know what that means either. Yes. So we're going to come up with some definitions for you. So Thanksgiving meal, let's pretend it's a normal year. There's people around and there's pecan pie and stuffing and gravy and turkey and all that. Yeah. And so tell me, what would be a successful Thanksgiving meal for you? Right? And they might say, and very often, I bet people come to you and say this, they'll say, well, I'm going to be perfect. Oh, right. Yes. People would much rather fail spectacularly than succeed unimpressively. Right? Because like part of the reason people fail is that there's a part of them that says, well, I'm going to try to be perfect, and nobody's perfect. So therefore I have, oh, well, it didn't work. Right. So instead of that, I want people to be perfect. I don't believe in progress, not perfection. I believe in perfection, but you define it.
Absolutely.
So maybe for you, perfection is only one drumstick and only one slice of pecan pie. I'm going to have the veggies. I'm going to have the side casserole. I'm going to have the scalloped potatoes. I'm going to move the cheese to the side mostly, and that will be success.
Correct.
So, and then I would ask the person, okay, let's imagine, let's go through that situation. Imagine it. Imagine what people are going to say. Imagine how you're going to feel when you're staring at the giant tureen of dairy space soup. Imagine how you're going to feel when drunk Uncle Tom comes up and says, "Are you still doing that vegetarian thing?" Right? And then, so play it through in your mind. If do you play sports?
Oh, no.
No. Like anyone who plays a sports game imagines.
Yes.
Right? They play it through. What could happen?
That's right. But I must say, I may not play sports, but I do think ahead of the scenarios which are going to trip me or going to, may get me in trouble. Or because I work on so many projects, I imagine how the end goal is going to be, and
Yeah, it's contingency planning.
Contingency plan.
Right.
Plan B.
So I come up. So I have them walk through this, and I say, okay, what could trip you up? Okay, well, drunk Uncle Tom could trip me up.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. What would you like to do in that moment?
Correct.
How could you respond? Maybe you can't. Like maybe, okay, you know what? The thing I said is too hard. I'm going to try something else. I'm not, right? But you want to come up with a plan that's specific enough that you have stress tested in your mind, and that you have what we call contingencies.
Correct.
If then, when then.
Yes.
So when the hostess offers me the second piece of pie, then I will say, I would love some tea. Is there any extra tea?
Correct.
Right. So that you're not floundering without strategies. You've rehearsed your lines and your actions. And so the things that used to be triggers for bad behavior are now triggers for an incompatible positive behavior.
Absolutely. No, this is so right. This is also part of that being mindful. You are becoming mindful about how you are going to deal with the situation instead of just landing up in this at the table next to Uncle Tom and just be completely mindless about where you are, what you need, what you are doing, what you should have, what, like having no plan B in place, like you are saying, or contingency plan, or just being completely mindless,
Yep. And I want to give one more thing to do, because you have to practice this in advance.
Yes.
Right? So if it's sports, you don't just watch the tapes of the other team, but you go on the field and you practice again and again and again. So the reason people engage in any behavior at all is to change their state relative to their environment. That's right. That's why amoebas move and wiggle. Why fish, like there's a stimulus from the environment, and to change our state to move into comfort, safety, security, excitement, whatever the state that we want is, we take an action. So the reason we engage in bad behaviors is that we are trying to improve our state. We want to feel better. If Uncle Tom also happens to be a jerk and a flaming racist, and we're at Thanksgiving with him, and we've never been able to say anything or speak up, and we're feeling very uncomfortable. Well, uncomfortable feelings are really easy to get rid of with ice cream.
Yes, that's true.
Like that.
Yes.
Right. So to understand what you're trying to accomplish by eating poorly, because it's not the food, it's not the calories, it's not the taste of chocolate. It's the thing that's going to get you. It's the state change, the emotional change. What are you trying to get away from? So what are the inner states that trigger it?
Correct.
And what are you trying to get to? And almost everybody I ask, when they really think about, like, why am I eating garbage? It's because I want to be soothed and comfortable.
Correct. It's comforting.
Right? It's comforting for about a minute and a half.
Correct.
And then, so then I'll say, that strategy, of eating chocolate every time you're a little distressed to soothe and comfort yourself. Being soothed and comforted is a beautiful goal. It's a human right to feel okay. Is that strategy getting you there?
Long term. Long term. Like how do you...
How do you feel half an hour afterwards?
Correct, exactly. Like how do you feel when you're putting that bowl down, you know? People look at that bowl and there's immediately that guilty feeling that pops in. So that half a second of soothing, that high, is gone when they look at their bowl. I know, so I have another patient that I'm working with. She doesn't look at her food when she's eating. Because you see the disconnect, you know, because when she just doesn't want to deal with that part of the behavior.
Right. And so very often people come to us and they think what they need to do is restriction.
Yes.
Because that's the culture. Oh, you're eating too much, you're fat, you eat less.
Yes.
You know, exercise till you puke and stop eating.
Yes.
Right? So we have this sense of, okay, what I need to do is restrict myself.
Yes.
And people who are overeating are already miserable. They don't want less joy in their lives.
Correct.
So instead of saying, okay, well, you got to stop eating the pecan pie, don't be such a pig, you know, grow a pair, get some willpower.
Yeah.
Instead of that, we say, let's really tend to what soothes and comforts you.
Absolutely.
What else might you do to be soothed and comforted in your life? You know, talk to friends, take up a sport, meditate.
How about moving away from Uncle Tom and sit to maybe Aunt Sally, you know, and
Aunt Sally's great. You haven't seen her for a year. She's terrific.
Exactly. You know, I mean, we should, when you are in that situation, we need to be able to navigate. It's like, you know, when there is trouble, nobody runs to the trouble, right? We try to move away from it. Like you were saying, that emotion, right? If there is a if there is a fire, what's the right thing to do? Not jump in the fire, but move away from it. So similarly, I feel the Thanksgiving dinner table is this fire, and we need to figure out how are you going to deal with it.
Yep. And sometimes it's a fire, and sometimes it's a teeny little candle flame that we turn into a fire.
That's exactly correct.
So the other thing I have people do is to practice sitting with your negative feelings, emotions, thoughts, sensations without having to change them or distract yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's like when I was a kid, I was scared of the dark. And you couldn't get me upstairs. There was parents and some friends were downstairs, and up there in the hall, it was dark. I would not go. Yeah. And then they forced me up, and I was sure there's something under my bed.
Yeah.
Right. And it was debilitating.
Yes.
But once you look under the bed, it's gone.
That's right.
Right. So having people sit with, okay, so you know what I do? When I eat one, I have to eat 10.
Correct.
So, okay, are you willing to give them up? Well, no, I'm not realistic. Okay, so let's try an experiment.
Yeah.
Go home, take one, put it on a plate, and sit with it, and notice what comes up. And people will do anything to avoid that feeling of, oh, I gotta have it, I gotta have it.
Yeah.
It's like on a scale of like 1 to 100, where 1 is no pain and 100 is the most excruciating pain you've ever felt in your life. Where is this?
Yeah.
And they go, actually, it's about a 3.
Yeah.
Like it's not even a paper cut.
Exactly.
It's not root canal.
Yes.
It's not slamming your finger in the car door. It's a little, it's like, it's right. But we've learned to interpret that as the end of the world. Like I can't handle this feeling.
Absolutely.
And once you learn that you can handle the feeling, then you have options. You can eat the chocolate if you want, or it's not imperative. It's not life or death.
Correct. Yeah, because that's another mentality I'm sure you see with your clients is almost like all or none, you know, like, fail or pass. it's life is not so black and white, right? So that's and the situations and all this stuff. So it's really having that clarity in your thinking and going back to your original strategy. What do you want?
Right. And that's, when I love the metaphor of it's, pass or fail, all or
Yeah.
nothing. Think of it instead as a navigation system, it's GPS,
Correct.
right? So what do you want is the destination.
Yes.
Now you can go left or you can go right. You haven't failed at anything. It
No.
might reroute you.
Correct.
Right. But if you really want to get there, you'll probably make some detours. You'll stop for gas. You'll forget and go the wrong way for a little while. None of that matters.
Correct.
As long as if you have a cybernetic view of it, that you have this goal and you're constantly observing the feedback to see if you're getting there. It can be very empowering rather than, oh, I have no control and there's something wrong with me and the world is messed up.
That's right. No, it's very easy to fall into the trap of poor me. Oh, because I'm plant-based or whatever you are trying to do, transitioning. Oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. No, there's plenty to eat. None of us are deprived. We are not in a underdeveloped country where we have never seen a piece of pie in our lives. So it also matter of context, correct? That and being grateful about, instead of focusing on Uncle Tom, what he's not doing to support you, but looking at Uncle Tom and saying, hey, you know what, this Uncle Tom is like a little unit test that I have to take. If I can handle Uncle Tom, I can handle 5 Uncle Toms, even if they put the tub of ice cream on my lap here.
Yeah, why not? If we want to live in integrity, why do we fear tests of our integrity?
Exactly.
If I want to lift weights, I don't fear heavy weights. I know the heavy weights are the only thing that's going to get me there.
That's right. So I think we should turn Uncle Tom into as a negative force versus, oh, Uncle Tom is just it's good that I have Uncle Tom at the table today, because it's really going to get me in my gears and help me.
Yeah, the most challenging people in your life are your gurus.
Oh, absolutely.
They are the ones who will teach you.
We need Uncle Toms. In fact, Uncle Tom should get his friend too to the party.
Yeah. And you said something else I want to comment about, which is the idea of gratitude.
Yes.
And when people understand, like, yes, I should be grateful. And I want people to understand also that the impulse, there's nothing wrong with this impulse that we have to overeat, to indulge, to consume everything. It's a part of the life force.
Yes.
But when it's unchecked, and when we feel like, okay, so I have a preference to eat too much and I can't not act on it, that's kind of the opposite of gratitude. That really is sort of greedy entitlement.
Yes.
And I don't say that to make people feel bad, but when I realized it about myself, like what I want more than anything, more than being the weight that I am or the health status that I am, I want to live a life in integrity with my values.
Correct.
And so the ultimate question is, what are my values and how do they play out at that Thanksgiving table?
Yeah.
Am I a person who has gratitude for what they have, or am I constantly scanning for what's next? Right? Am I a person who can endure difficulty, or do I have to fall to pieces? Right? Am I a person who believe, whatever your values are, loyalty, confidence, curiosity?
Yeah.
Any one of those values can be manifest in that moment. And what's beautiful.
Absolutely. The other one would be, I would add sympathy. I would sympathize with Uncle Tom. That it's too bad that at this age, Uncle Tom is still not recognizing why I'm being plant-based, and how not only it's helping me for my health, but planet health and, sustainability and all that good stuff. So show some, instead of anger towards Uncle Tom and frustration toward Uncle Tom, maybe sympathy, and with your phenomenal insight into gratitude, Uncle Tom would be a supporter.
Yeah, because the math that doesn't work is I'm going to do something hard and unpleasant now for some future reward. But if I'm doing something hard now that is in accordance with my values and I connect it consciously to who I am as a person, and like it feels good to act according to your values. Doesn't it feel good to help a friend, to be kind? It feels much better.
Exactly.
Like there's studies when they give people money and they say, go spend this money either on something nice for yourself or something for somebody else.
Yeah.
And then they ask them, how much fun did you have doing it? And every time, spending it on someone else gives you more pleasure.
Absolutely.
So can you, if you can spend that moment and say, okay, I'm going to tie this to the value of sympathy, the value of empathy, the value of family, the value of joy, whatever it is that you feel good when you do, then you don't have to wait until you've lost 30 pounds and dropped your A1C. You can feel good at the same time as someone else might feel deprived.
Absolutely. It's that joy, that satisfaction, that gratification is instantaneous. Howard, this has been absolutely pleasure and extremely informative, very supportive. And I'm so grateful that we are having this episode just before Thanksgiving. And this is so timely with everything that has been going on with stress and upcoming holidays. So if somebody wants to find you, where can we find you?
So there's two good places. One is if you'd like to find out about working with me, in groups or individually, go to sicktofit.com. That's SICKTOFIT, sicktofit.com. There you can download a free Kindle version of the book Sick to Fit, which I wrote with Josh Lajani, which goes into the strategies for changing your life and getting healthy. If you'd like to follow my podcast, where every week I interview someone, it's often plant-based, but it's expanded because I get bored easily. That's at plantyourself.com.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much again. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight.
And thank you for having me.
And we wish you happy holidays and safe and, healthy holidays, of course, and New Year. And everybody out there, thank you for listening. And thank you for joining this another episode of Ask Nutritionist Deepa. Stay healthy, stay well, and share the episode and follow us on YouTube and Facebook, because this episode will be on those platforms as well. So thanks again, and talk to you next week.